Edwards. So I'm a content or developmental editor, which means I focus on story. She's a line editor, which means that she focuses on the writing itself, typing the writing, making sure there are no grammatical mistakes, that kind of thing. So even though she couldn't be here today because she's giving a, she's doing like a creativity workshop down at St. George. Isn't that a shame? You know, meet in St. George Island. Yeah, that's tough. So why edit in the first place? Because you want to make sure that your best work goes forward. I'm sure you probably know someone who published their book and then someone said, do you realize you have all these mistakes in it? And they're like mortified. Yeah, because you want to put your best work forward. I tell people that the first draft they write is for them. So you get to write whatever you want on the first draft because it's all about you. But then, if your intention is to share your story with others, the later drafts need to be for them. So this is where you start cutting out maybe some of the things that you don't need, and you have to be a little bit ruthless. Another really important reason to edit, one of the most important reasons, is that you usually only have one chance if you're looking for an agent or an editor, or if you're self-publishing and you're trying to get this book into the hands of readers. You've got like one chance. There are so many books to read nowadays. If I pick up a book and I start reading it and I'm not enjoying the book early on, I'm not going to keep reading it because I've got 30 more books waiting for me on my shelf. I really do. That's probably because I buy too many. But so you want to make sure that you hook your reader because you're competing with so many others. Okay, types of editing. First of all, there's developmental editing, which I do. I mentioned that. Let's focus on the story. I'll get into more about that in just a minute. The line editing, which is a focus on the writing itself. Copy editing, which is a focus on the mechanics, just the grammar of writing. And then last, proofreading. And proofreading is really just looking for like typos and spelling errors. Okay, so developmental editing. If you are working with nonfiction, then this is the person who's going to help you with the overall structure and the development of your nonfiction piece. For example, I think that Gina may do nonfiction developmental editing. I only do fiction and memoir. Okay, so with fiction, the whole point is to strengthen the storytelling, the story itself. So for example, your character arc, the character development in the story, your plot arc, do you have a fully shaped plot with a strong ending? I look at things like voice, point of view, what's the point of view you've chosen? Sometimes people don't, early newbie writers often, they go, point of view what? And then you realize that you're supposed to choose a point of view and stick to it. The tone of your story, the theme, and then also what's really, really important, whether it's a memoir or a novel, what's really important is conflict and pacing and tension. So last, let's see, setting, description, dialogue. I actually keep an eye out for probably about like 20, 25 different things when I'm editing. And I know there's someone here who I worked with before, and she can tell you that when you get the editorial letter, I've got all these different things that I'm talking about, your different characters, the world building. There's just so many things that I try to touch upon because I'm trying to help you make your story be the best it can be. Okay, so what process do developmental editors use? Some developmental editors that you contact will only work through hard copy. So writersdigest.com has ones where you can just automatically download pages and pay the error. It's like $4 a page or something, and then they give you feedback, and that's all just done electronically. Some people prefer hard copy. For me, for my developmental editing, I do a much better job if it's hard copy. And so I only have a couple people who occasionally be like, please do it electronic. And I go, okay, but it won't be as good. So it helps me to be able to do things like circle something and say, wait, move this up there. And this part, trim the description here. So I just feel like it's easier on a hard copy. What does developmental editing even mean? It can mean just an overall evaluation. Someone reads the whole thing and gives you like maybe a 6-page summary on how you can strengthen it and what's working well. It can be that all the way to like kind of really detailed developmental feedback, like what I was just mentioning, where a typical manuscript that I edit when I do the detailed developmental feedback, there's like over 1,000 marks on the manuscript. I know, but that includes includes, I have to say, I do line edits. So if I catch any like typos and things like that, but it still is not, it's not for the, it's not for the faint of heart. Yeah. So again, your developmental editor may include some line and copy edits. I probably wouldn't if I was doing electronically, but I'm on the page. If I see a typo, of course I'm just going to circle it and keep going. So a lot of people will do that. Usually I get one round of feedback, and there's an important reason for this. And people will say, if I take this and I rewrite and make all these changes, and it's maybe a third of it is new, and I give it to you, would you edit it again? And I say, but not with a fresh pair of eyes. So if you've laid out some kind of mystery, or I've got some kind of relationship unfolding, I already know what's going to happen. So I'm not reading it like a reader, and I can't tell if there are places where the world building is confusing, or you haven't given exposition where it was needed. So I highly recommend that before you take it to a developmental editor, that you already get it in as good a shape as you can. If you have beta readers read the same story over and over, you really would be better off probably just getting it as good as you can, give it to the beta reader, and then maybe give it to a different beta reader. Okay, whatever you do, please do your developmental editing before you do your line edits. This is whether you're doing your own work or someone else's. I see often with critique groups, you want to bring in your best work. So you work on chapter 1 and you polish it, and you polish it, and when you bring it in, it's beautiful, but your story doesn't start until chapter 4. And so you get all this feedback on how to make chapter 1 beautiful, and so 4 months later, by the time you actually bring chapter 4 in, somebody goes, oh, well, this is where the story starts. And so developmental editing isn't about all those, making all the pretty descriptions and things like that. It's about making sure you have your story in place. So with your own edits, with your critique partners, with a paid professional editor, always do the story-wide developmental editing before you do your line edits. It also makes it really hard to kill your darlings. If you have polished a scene and made it beautiful and it doesn't serve a purpose in your story, it makes it all the harder. It's a waste of time, too, and it takes so many years to write a book sometimes. So it's not necessarily a use of your time, and it makes it harder to get rid of. So line editing. Here the focus is on the prose, the writing itself, and line editors will often look at the writing on like a paragraph level. So they'll look at how the whole paragraph kind of hangs together. They'll look at things like transitions between chapters or scenes. That's a good place where you'll have overlap. Your developmental editor will probably make some comments about where they see transitions missing. And it's great that if you have a developmental editor who does some of the line edits, and you have a line editor who gets into a tiny bit of the developmental, then nothing falls between the cracks. So I actually think that it works well that way. They'll look for things like where you've made your POV mistakes. And this is where a line editor really can do a great job of helping you with your bland language. So he did not like instead of he despised, getting stronger words, stronger verbs down. They can also look for repetitive structure. Sometimes you want the repetitive structure, it's there for a feeling, but sometimes you just look down. I look down at a chapter of mine, and basically every is first person, and almost every paragraph started with I something, every single paragraph for like 2 pages. I'm like, I get boring. Redundancies, if you've said the same thing kind of multiple times, and we often, where I found we do this is, you write it the first time, and you write it kind of maybe bare bones if you're writing quickly, then you go back and you fill in, except for you fill in too much. And so maybe you've said the same thing multiple times on the page, just in a slightly different way. So for you, it doesn't feel like it's the same, but you have somebody else read it, and they can do a really good job of saying, this is the same thing that's over there. You really don't need both. A friend of mine was really good at this, and I gave her first draft of my novel, and no lie, there were places where I had like 3 lines of dialogue, and she cut 2 of the 3, and I only needed the 1. And I was like, wait a minute, how could I have written 3 sentences? And I thought I needed it, I really only needed 1, which is, it's always stronger, right? If you can say the same thing with less words. Line editors will often use Microsoft Word's track changes, the comment features, the little bubbles off to the side. So now a copy editor, now we're looking, and this is, so this is the person who's looking for grammar, who's really not looking at like, how did this thought flow from the last one, but they're just looking at the actual like grammar, the mechanics. So there'll be a focus on like grammar, spelling, punctuation. continuity, whether the sentences kind of carry from one to the next. They'll give you some word and phrasing suggestions, consistencies. Some copy editors will also be really good about, if they know the names of your characters, if the name is misspelt or changes at any point, they'll be able to catch some of those. And definitely a line editor will look for that too. If you are self-publishing, then your copy editor can also help you with your author bio and cover information. If you're publishing like nonfiction, you have pictures, they can make sure that your credits and your captions are all correct. And let's see, like things like bibliography. So just like I said, there was some overlap between your developmental and your line editing. There's also some overlap between line and copy editing, redundancies, passive voice. I think especially the line editor will also probably catch like grammatical things that stand out. Factually incorrect statements, that you'd be careful about. So for example, I don't, usually if you want something to be fact checked, then that is something that is, you need to hire like an expert in that area. And so luckily I mostly deal with fiction authors and memoir, but so we don't get into a lot of fact checking. Okay, and so then last is proofreading. So let's say you've done your own developmental edits and your line edits, and you went through maybe you used Grammarly, you paid someone, you used a friend, or you used Grammarly to make sure you got all your grammar mistakes corrected. And then last is proofreading, because I promise you that no matter how hard people try to catch all the mistakes on those first 3 rounds, there are always mistakes. I mean, you buy any book off the shelf by Simon & Schuster, and there are mistakes in it. So, which is amazing, because you'd think that they could have grammar programs that would catch things like when the word "the" is missing. Yeah, and it amazes me. So that's what your proofreader is for. And so if you, sometimes people confuse that with a copy editor. The proofreader is not there to correct your grammar. The proofreader is just there to look for things like you're missing punctuation. Missing words, a word listed twice. There are things that we often overlook when we're reading because we know what words are supposed to be there. So if it's the, you just keep reading, you don't even notice. This is an important step in the editing process. I'll be honest with you, a really good story is what's going to make people love your book, but these grammatical and errors are what make people sometimes judge your book. I think it's silly, but because I think this, for me, story is more important than if you have typos. But if you've published, I'm sure you know, you can get people who are like, because there's kind of like no right and wrong with story, but they're like, you've got a mistake. You know what I'm talking about? Okay.
That is my mother.
So if you are doing proofreading, you can do it at a couple different times. If you're doing, like, say you're self-publishing, you can do it prior to layout. You can try to get all those corrections done the next time when you would do it. And traditional publishers, I should say, by the way, they do all of these steps. You know that, right? Traditional publishers, they pay for a developmental editor and a line editor and a copy editor and a proofreader. And they do the proofreading before they then create the, what they call an ARC, an advanced reader copy, or in the self-publishing world, they call it galley proof. Is that right? Mm-hmm. That's when you definitely want to print out at least one, maybe several of these. And you pass them around to your friends who are like really, attentive ones where nothing gets past them. You don't even have to, it doesn't matter whether or not they like stories. They just need to be the people who will always see the missing period. So that's when they become your good friend. They may not offer anything helpful at all as far as what you've done in your characters and your plot, but those are the people, it's like kind of like your high school grammar teacher or something. So they're also going to look for like spacing, because sometimes it's that the words have been run together, or you don't have the correct spacing. Indentation margins, I know let's see, not mentioning names, but someone asked me to like look over her art. She had it actually professionally edited, and it had not. You guys are probably familiar with the fact that you don't indent the first paragraph in a scene or in a chapter. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about? So it's always the edge. Mm-hmm. None of those were correct, mm-hmm. And so it just, line and copy editors, they have so many things to do. That's why you really want to pay careful attention with your ARC or your galley proof, because people make mistakes. We can't catch them all. These are also like your widows, your orphans. Ebook layout. If you are going to self-publish, you may not know this yet, but if you are going to self-publish, or if you have self-published, you do know that when you do ebooks, there are different layouts depending on what devices people are going to be reading. So you need someone who can help make sure that your ebook is ready for those different versions, different devices. So now, how do you go about finding an editor? There are all sorts of professional organizations that can help you. You figure out what is your area, what do you like to specialize in, and one of the things that I think can be helpful, sometimes you have to be a member to get onto their website and read the information, but what I think would be really helpful actually is the forums. So they're not always comfortable like listing editors, or if they do, they can't like say this is a good person, this is a bad person, because they don't want to, be liable or anything. But on the forums, you go and you say, I've got a novel and I'm looking for a good, line or developmental editor, and you can ask people about their experiences. I love the forums for that. I've actually gotten referrals from people. So people I don't know who spoke to other people that they didn't know but who had worked with me, and so knowing someone or talking to someone who's worked with an editor, I think, is one of the best ways to find one. You can just do a Google search, but I would be careful because, I don't have a fancy website because I just cannot bring myself to spend the time. It's not interesting to me. I love reading stories and editing, but I don't love spending time on my website. Just because somebody has a fancy website doesn't mean that they're a good editor. It means that they like to have a fancy website. So, personal referrals. You can find people who you know, and then you can ask them about their experiences. I wouldn't limit yourself. If you can get in touch with writers in different areas, the nice thing about the internet is that you can work with an editor who lives anywhere. I know someone who's working with an editor in Australia, which I guess it's not a line editor because there's spelling and stuff, isn't there? But so you can work with people all around the world. Only about half the people who I work with live here in Tallahassee or in close to Tallahassee. The other half, I don't know, had like New Mexico and Michigan and just all over, I think Montana or something. So, but it's great because then we can Skype afterwards, we can talk on the phone. The internet just makes it so easy to have still kind of a personal relationship with that person. And if you find someone who you think sounds interesting and you don't know the people who, you don't know someone personally who's worked with them, always feel free to ask the person for a referral. And so now here's the thing, you might go, okay, well, she's just going to refer me to her best friend who's going to say, so what you could do is you can look, for example, to see, you could ask them who are some of the authors they've worked with and would any of those authors be willing to speak with you. And so I'm trying to think, because if I'm trying to think, how can you make sure that the person, I think you can tell the difference if you spend a little time looking between a professional author and it's like Barbara Jo, I would totally respect anything she told me because I wouldn't think she was just trying to like say something nice for her friend. She has a reputation to uphold. She's a professional in the business. So find people who you feel like are professional authors and I would trust their advice. But also keep in mind that your needs may be different. And so some people need more hand-holding through the process and some people are okay to get kind of a really distant editor. I feel like I am more, not a hand holder, but I spend a lot of time with the person. So I talk with them on the phone before we begin the work, and then when I give them back the manuscript, we spend like another hour and a half to 2 hours talking about all my feedback to make sure they understand it. If you're doing Writer's Digest, you just get like a printout. You don't get to actually speak to someone. So, but not everybody needs that. For me, I almost feel like I need it to make sure that my writers understand my comments. Okay, so before hiring an editor, I highly recommend talking in person on the phone. You could just speak in an email, but I think you get a better idea if you'll be a good fit talk on the phone. Prepare questions ahead of time, and you can let them know what you're looking for. So the person who I spoke to the other day said, he really wants help with dialogue. And then I warned him that, okay, I'll keep an eye out for dialogue, but I'm gonna also keep an eye out for everything else, because it's really hard for me to just only look at dialogue. But for example, I had someone who had a manuscript where the protagonist was really, I won't say kind, was really unlikable. And he had an agent, and multiple editors had said no, because the protagonist was so unlikable. So I wasn't really working on the plot in that story. All I did was help him to make the protagonist more likable. And then he was able, it came out with, I don't remember what publisher, back in October. But so if you let the person know, if you specifically want help with a certain thing, let them know that. Understand what their process is and what fees are involved. I would never charge someone like a fee, for example, to give you a quote. That seems silly. I read the opening 20 pages, but different people do this differently. I read the opening 20 pages, tell you what I think so far, and then tell you what the fee would be. Some people, like a copy editor, you might send in the first 20 pages, and they might charge you because they're actually editing. They might charge you for the first 20 pages, and then tell you how much they estimate it will be. Some people do like what they call a flat rate. I'm getting ahead of myself though. I definitely would only do a written quote. There are only 2 authors that I am willing to work with without giving them a written quote first, and which makes it very hard, because they're like, just tell me whatever it is, and they're both like best-selling published authors. They've got lots of books, and they're just like, I don't care, I don't want to do a contract, I just want you to start it today. And so when I'm like, oh, I mean, I know they'll always pay whatever I tell them to pay, but I feel very uncomfortable hitting them up if they don't know in advance what it's going to be. So, so you get that written quote, and then before you sign an agreement, and I highly recommend having a signed agreement. If you want to just go back and forth in an email agreeing on things, you can. I actually send out an agreement that we both sign, so the person knows it's in writing what they can expect from me, and when the payment is due, and things like that. But so I would ask any remaining questions you have before you sign the agreement. Feel free to interview multiple people. You need to be spending over $1,000 easily. So you don't want to spend that kind of money. Feel free to talk to multiple people to find the right editor for you. So first you're going to want to find out what services is it that they offer. And then you may want to find out what their expertise is in specific forms and genres. So so whether this person does like fiction, nonfiction, technical writing, those are all very different. So for example, I work with lots of different genres. I don't do like that high fantasy kind of, you know what I'm talking about, where like they've invented other languages and everything together. I don't do that because I don't think I'm not an expert enough in that genre, but I think somebody else could give them better advice. So, you know, find out what experience people have in those genres. Make sure that the personality is the right fit for you. You can also look at their education, qualifications, and experience. I would say that to me, I consider to be less important than maybe like the referrals that you get and that personal chemistry you have with them. My background, I have a master's in physics. How did I come here? Honestly, when I was getting my master's in physics, I used to get books on writing, and I hid them because I couldn't let anybody else in the physics program know what I was doing, and I hid them, and I read books on writing. It was my true love, but it was, you know, everybody said, don't get an English degree, you won't be able to, you know, you won't get a job. And so I got a science degree, and here I am editing. But so, if it is someone who does copy editing though, then I could understand if they have like certifications that people can take, tests that you can take to prove that you know your copy editing. I could totally see looking for someone who has a certification before asking them to do your copy editing, because you really do want to make sure that they can, it tests them like on how quickly they can work, for example, and how accurately. So you can talk to past clients of theirs, look at testimonials they may have on their website. If they're testimonials, you might want to look up. This is so sad to say, but you could look up and make sure those people really exist. I'm not. I mean, there are unfortunately some people out there who are con artists, and they'll get your money to start with. And if the person lives in New England, if the person says they live in New England, it could be really hard to get your money back. It goes through PayPal, and then it can be really hard. You may want to get sample edits, especially if you are talking about a copy editor. You might want to know what their style and method is. That's like are you doing Chicago Manual style, ALA, things like that. You're going to want to find out what their rates are. Factors that will influence the editing cost, well, obviously the type of editing and the level of feedback. So in my world of developmental editing, the level of feedback, whether you want more generalized information about how the story stands versus you really want that detailed developmental editing. You want me to mark every single time the dialogue sounds on the nose, which means it sounds like narration, it sounds like a real person talking. It's going to cost more if I'm doing all that detailed work. The length, of course, whether it's line editing or whether it is copy developmental, the length is going to be important. For me, it's also factors unique to the story. So if you have a story with a lot of world building, then I need to keep track of it and make sure that it's been laid out at the right time and that it's consistent. If you have 2 alternating timelines or you have multiple narrators, things like that will add a little bit of time. Not a lot, but it'll add some time. Things like that are probably not so important to a line or copy editor. I think they really care more so about, line and copy editors are going to care more so about the length and the quality of writing. I don't care so much because I'm not going through and making comments about every single, how can I say this? Sometimes ones that are really well written can actually take me longer than ones that have lots of line, errors and kind of sloppy writing because my focus isn't on that. And so they may have a very complicated story, and so it might take me longer. The editor's location and experience. One of the nice things, again, about the internet is that you can find someone who lives in Tallahassee or another small city, or you can find someone who lives in New York. And I promise you, the person in New York, they have to charge like 4 times what somebody in Tallahassee charges. They just have to, because otherwise they can't eat, they can't pay their rent. So you can look into the editor's location, and the longer they've been working, the more people will tend to charge. I'm not very good about raising my rates. I keep trying to, and I realize I'm trying the same than I was 3 years ago, but that's okay. I really wish that I could do it. I need somebody else to do all the bookkeeping stuff. But generally, as someone's been working longer, they'll be more expensive. If you have a deadline and you want to get rushed, you want to get squeezed in between the people who are already waiting, then you can expect to pay more. That means your editor's going to like work nights and weekends in order to try to get your story finished for you. One of the things that you'll want to look into also is the payment schedule. So some people will ask for you to pay part up front. I doubt there are very many people who would expect you to not pay anything up front. Because if they invest like 20 hours into your work and then you walk away from it, you say, oh, I got an agent, sorry. Then they get paid nothing for all those hours. Some people want a full payment up front. I do 50-50, so you do full payment up front?
Yes, yeah. I learned this.
So I have done 50-50 and I've never been burned, and if I do, then maybe I'll have to change it. But right now I do 50% in advance and 50% when I finish the manuscript. Some people will want a deposit to hold your space in their lineup because they're booking out for months, and so if they're going to keep that space for you reserved, then they're going to want maybe 20% down. Some people will do a discount if you pay it all in advance. I've never done that. I've just always done half and half. I have like once or twice I guess now, I have done like an installment plan with someone where they kind of like, pay. I did turn down somebody else who wanted to pay me like $50 weekly, and I was like, $50 weekly? Do you realize? I'm like, and he said, maybe you can just do as much as $50 will get me each week. And I said, I'm like, I won't remember your story. I want to do it all at once. And so I was trying to tell him he'd be better off putting that money into a savings account and then coming back to me. Yeah, because you don't even want to pay someone to spend a little bit of time on your story each week. They're not going to do a good job at all. There's also whether you're going to get a firm quote or if the person is going to charge by the hour. So for myself, for example, I give a quote on the whole manuscript, and it's based predominantly on word count, and then second on how complicated, how complex the manuscript is. But I don't do hourly, and the reason is because, I'll be honest with you, if I've had 1 cup of coffee or I've had 3 cups of coffee, I may work at a different rate. And if the phone rings, and there was a time when I would sit there and hit my timer on every time I went to start and off every time I stopped, and what I did was I just figured out about how long it takes me to do a manuscript, and now I just estimate it, because I don't feel like someone should pay more because it was the day I drank decaf or something. So first is you want to write hot. That's where you've got all the passion for your story, you're very excited about your story, and you're really into all of your characters. Then you go back and you're going to edit cold. What does that mean? It means that you're going to distance yourself from your story, because now is when you have to think like an editor, and it's what's best for my story. Not which characters that I love the most, but which ones actually were important to the story. After you've done your own editing, step 3, you'll go to your critique group. Raise your hand here if you've ever worked with a critique group, or writing partners or anything. So critique groups, or like I don't have a critique group, but I have writing buddies, as I call them. And what's nice about a critique group or writing buddies is those are people who understand writing, and you can get feedback from them. I don't do chapter by chapter. I will give half a manuscript or a whole manuscript, and we kind of swap manuscripts instead and read the whole thing through. So you get feedback from them, and then what do? You make revisions. Then you can send it off. When you've gotten help from your writing friends, you'll send it off to your beta readers. Are you guys familiar with what a beta reader is?
Yes.
A beta reader is somebody who has no investment in your story, which means it's not your best friend and it's not your mom. It's not your critique partners either. It's going to be someone who loves the genre that you're reading, that you're writing in. If you're writing romance and you have your coworker who hates romance reading it, then what's the point? You want to take someone who would actually buy your book, and also I would say somebody who knows nothing about your book. If you've already told your coworker all these cool things that you did in your story, then when they read it, they're not going to be able to read it with a fresh pair of eyes. So you're giving it to that person who likes your genre, who knows next to nothing about your story, and you ask them to make comments. These are comments on the reader's side, and so they'll tell you like where they're confused. The 2 main things I ask for is where you're confused and where you were bored. Just be honest with you. Where were you bored? And then when you do, you go back and you make revisions. So I would never send off a manuscript to someone, to pay someone without going through all of these steps. It's expensive going to an editor, and the editor can take your story up 1 level, but they can't take your story up 3 levels. You can't leapfrog like that. So let your critique group help you make it stronger, your betas make it even stronger, then send it off to your professional editor so that you're getting that professional advice on like a really high level instead of them giving you advice on a lower level. This is when you would pay for a developmental editor if you were going to pay for one. Maybe you feel like your story is really, really strong. You know how to plot, and you don't feel like you need a developmental editor. You might just go straight to a line editor. Or maybe you want help with a developmental editor and you're not worried about line edits because you have a background in grammar and editing. But you would go in this order if you were going to hire people. It's the developmental, then the line, then the copy edit, and then the book design. Something I want to bring up here is, let's say you finished your book tomorrow. You finished a draft, you've gotten feedback from all your friends, and you're ready to hire an editor. When should you call your editor? When should you look for an editor? Like 3 months ago.
Right.
Because it's going to take a while to find somebody, and then they could easily have a list. So you do editing, right? So, I mean, people will easily have like a backlog of 2 months, and it can be longer than that. Sometimes they may have a cancellation, and they might be able to take you earlier. But, and it really depends on how much they juggle other things. But in some editors, you get on a waiting list for when they actually start taking new people, because they have so many regular people that they work for that they don't take new people yet. So Book design, if you are self-publishing, you can be working on your book design this whole time that you've been paying other people to help with your editing. Then you're going to have your proofread, and then you have your printed copy that you're going to read. That you're going to look for mistakes on. Then you can schedule your launch party. If you're going to self-publish, which of these steps are you responsible for?
All of everything.
That's right, all of them. If you are planning to go with a small press or looking for an agent, how far through do you think you need to go?
Up until the beta reader?
Copy edit.
5.
So I've heard critique group, beta readers, copy edits.
You would need to do a book
You need to go
design.
all the way
You
up.
don't need to do the book design, but I will say that if you are
All the way up to
looking
5.
for,
I think
and
5.
at least, yeah, I would say, so you definitely want to do your beta readers. And I would say that you want to either hire, you probably want to hire a developmental editor or a line editor, depending on how, maybe you want one or the other or both. I will tell you that most editors at publishing houses, do you think they're more concerned about whether your story is ready or whether all your line edits are done?
Story.
The story, because they know the story can be cleaned up. But if the story isn't there, then who cares if there are no grammatical mistakes? So you definitely want to make sure before you send it off to a small press or an agent that the story is really strong. You still don't want to have lots of grammatical mistakes. You don't want sloppy writing. But the most important part, is the story. And let's see, so we talked about, so that'd be like agent and small press, self-publishing. Most of you probably know that it's very hard to get published with a traditional publisher without going through an agent first. I'm going to guess that most of you know that now. You have to, agents have become kind of a gatekeeper, and they want manuscripts. And the crazy thing is, it used to be that editors would help you to strengthen your story and the writing. And then it was editors wanted it already ready, and so the agents would help you. Now the agents, a lot of agents, they want it almost ready to publish. So it's like you have to do those steps yourself just to find the agent. Now once you have an agent, it's probably a lot easier to get feedback from them, but I will tell you that I work with published authors simply because, and they have agents, and they know their publisher, but they know their publisher isn't going to spend a lot of time on it, so they do this anyways. They pay someone anyways to help make the story strong. So with traditional publishing, you definitely don't do book design. Don't tell them I've got a cover for my book. They'll be like, no, because you have no control over the cover.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't need to worry about the cover or the formatting. I wouldn't worry about proofreading because they know they're going to make changes along the way. It doesn't need to be in ready-to-print form. I'm not even super worried about the copy edits. But if you have too many grammatical mistakes or too many copy errors, then they'll think that you haven't taken good care of your manuscript. They won't take you as seriously. So academia can be a little bit different than the world of commercial fiction. And I would say that in the world of commercial fiction, that your readers are more important than what people who are professionals think. So, but the thing is, I would never ask my beta readers to help make my writing strong. They're not even helping make the story strong. They're telling me what they liked and didn't like about it. So they might go, I loved your whole story, but your ending was horrible. I cannot believe that you killed off this person that way. And I do have a friend who, like 7 out of his 9 beta readers hated the ending. So that's some pretty strong statistics there, 7 out of 9. But it is important that you don't just choose any betas. Somebody was asking about how do you find beta readers. I would ask around. It's not necessarily that you want the same beta that your friend has. And generally people do not pay beta readers, but you might reward them by maybe take them to lunch or something. Gift cards, I don't think it's a bad idea to give them a thank you, but I wouldn't necessarily do an outright payment because then they may feel obligated to say nice things so that you keep hiring them. But what you really want is I would say you want an avid reader in that area, in that genre. So my novel is young adult and, near future thriller. And so I don't want someone who's never read YA because and I had someone who read some of it and he was like, yeah, I liked it, but they were just thinking too much about themselves and others. And then he compared it to Hunger Games and he said, no, that matches. So you want someone who knows the genre and who loves that genre. So how to find them? It's as simple as start asking around, ask your friends. So young adult, I asked some friends of mine, like he has a daughter who's like 19 and has gone away to college, but she still loves reading young adults. And I'm like, okay, I can let her read a copy of my story. There's some people who are really enthusiastic about reading, and I would say you want people who are enthusiastic, not necessarily family members, and people who don't mind telling you the truth. In the last 2 minutes, what I'd also like to give you guys a chance to do is think now of some of the questions that you might want to ask if you're going to hire an editor. What are some of the questions that you might want to ask someone that you're going to hire? So, for example, remember you maybe want to ask them what genres they've worked with. You could ask for examples of books they've worked on. You might ask, will they follow up and like, can you ask questions later through an email or a phone call? Some of them you're just totally on your own and you'll have to pay like $40 or $50 an hour to talk about the manuscript and you can anywhere past that. So those are some good questions to ask. You can ask them how long it will take, when you can expect to get your manuscript back. Let's see, yes.
Yeah, how long does it typically take you to get through an 80,000 word
So an
manuscript?
80,000 word novel, it's going to depend on the individual editor. Some editors are faster than others, and it's going to also depend on like if they have other things going on at the same time. So if they, I also teach writing classes, for example. So if I mean, either way, it generally takes me about a week to do a manuscript, but sometimes it might take longer. I did a 140,000 word novel, and I thought it would take me twice as long.
Because it was written well, or?
It took way more than twice as long because trying to get that much story in your head, I had to keep going back. It was amazing. I will not charge by word. In the future, I'm going to understand that once it gets that big, it needs to be more because
It wouldn't take one that big.
it's really tricky. Yeah, you wouldn't take one that long.
I wouldn't take one that long, no.
Well, it was a labor of love. You would like, I should have probably passed this around already, but I'll do it really quick. If anybody wants to give me their name and email address, I have a very sparse newsletter. I'll give your email to anyone else, and mine only goes out like once every month or two. It's kind of like the website, I don't go out of time into it. But Gina also has a great one that she puts out with really helpful information. And she had something on audiobooks, and I was thinking that you might be able to find who she has something called Around the Writer's Table, where you get to call in once a week, or once a month. It's pretty cool. You can call in and get advice. And so the person who did that with her might be able to come in and talk with you guys about audiobooks. So.
All right, let's give Ms.